just because you sign a contract with somebody doesn't mean they have to honor said contract. I feel like that's a lesson that everybody learns the hard way.
Yep.
Uh, when you're a kid or you're going through school or you're growing up, it's like, oh, you're signing something, you're signing a document that says you're going to do something. You think that there's going to be consequences if you don't. And you're like, there can be, but it's also far easier to break a contractual agreement than I ever thought possible. We had a number of clients, particularly through the SVB collapse and subsequent funding rounds, just say, nope, we're not going to pay you. We owe you 100 grand. We're not going to pay you. Or, we're breaking our contract here. We're breaking your contract there. And I was totally naive to that even being a possibility and what it would take to sue somebody and sort of, try to elicit the funds back and send them to collections and all of that whole thing. So
The unfun part of business. Yeah, I think the first thing you shared on is a lesson that many of us have learned over the past couple of years as things have changed from growth at all costs to profitability. Anyone that's been working in the industry or other industries for a while, like your first postmortem where you're like, how did things go so wrong? Is an experience that you don't get until you're in the working world and can really feel it firsthand.
yeah, I'm right there with you. The only thing about the challenges that provides some sort of recompense for me is that at least you're learning through them, right? Or it feels like you're learning through them, right? Like there are really tactical things, tactical takeaways that we learned through this process that, you know, at SBI I'm using and as we move forward into whatever, long-term, opportunities I choose to pursue will 100% come back to, be utilized and at least, there's some takeaway from the pain of making those mistakes along the way.
Yeah, mistakes can be learned from.
Yeah, exactly. I think these are the foundations of the business that you're learning. This is unfortunate that you have to learn them in those conditions, but you're going to carry this for, even your private life, right? Like, I think the decisions you're going to make them based off that too. That's where I've learned at the beginning of my career that, okay, a lot of that actually is, you can transfer that to the real life.
Totally agree with you.
Yeah. So let's dive a little bit into the services and tech trends. The first thing that comes to my mind I want to ask you about is this great transition from, somewhat fractional work that became a consulting, very much embedded into services that, has a successful exit, right? Like you don't hear a lot of these stories from the co-founders and founders, right? Like usually it's about tech, it's about the product. So what was your motivation to stay within the services? You never thought about changing and flipping into the product space, figuring out, okay, I can build this little app over here or there?
Well, I think there were two pieces to that decision. One is I don't know how to do it. So, everything that we do today and did before, there are ways that I can jump in to help if something happens or, we're operating from a basis of known skill set. So that's one piece. And the second piece is that services businesses, better or worse, are usually 90% of circumstances much simpler from a investment to return thesis in that it's a cash flowing business from day one because really I'm marketing my own time. My cost of goods is zero, right? And if I get paid $20 an hour and it's just my time, well then that's 40,000 bucks a year in revenue right there, on a standard 2,000 hour work week year. And so my point being is that we're not talking about hiring a developer for 2 years before we get to a MVP or a year until you get to an MVP and sinking in 100 or 200 or 500 grand, let alone anything more than that, right? Like successful products take millions and millions of dollars to develop before you see anything. And that can be scary from a cash flow perspective. The other reason is that we port all of our cash into growth. So brand, marketing, growth accelerants, you know, we went from nothing to 6 or 7 million in ARR in 2 or 3 years. And we didn't take money out of the business in that entire time. It all got funneled back in order to grow. And that's what got us to a point of being exitable rather than being a cash flow business that, you pull out $1 million a year out of, great, but then you're growing at 10% a year, inflation adjusted 7% a year. not nearly as sexy, not nearly as acquirable, and not nearly as high an exit multiple, most likely.